Hello and welcome to the Creative Commons Open Source Office Hours, coordinated through CodeBuddies.org. Today we're going to be working on a couple of tasks relating to the CreativeCommons.org redesign, work in progress, and just hanging out. And if anyone joins, we can chat about this or other projects that are part of the Creative Commons open source portfolio. The CreativeCommons.org website redesign now has its own GitHub project that combines several sub-projects or sub-modules as Git modules. And today we're going to be working on one of the sub-modules directly. We're not going to be working on the project, but overall, this project, CreativeCommons.org, I believe is the way forward for how we will combine multiple WordPress plugins and themes in an environment. We're using WP environment or WP Env project to kind of abstract away some of the underpinnings, the Docker underpinnings, although you can't quite escape. Sometimes the lower layers, things bubble up to the surface, some errors at times leak through the abstraction, so to speak. Got a typo over there in the README. We're going to work directly on this Creative Commons based theme today. Stale issues, I think they're okay to have stale issues. Specifically, we're going through page by page of these. We have several Figma mockups that were provided by a designer and building them out with the Gutenberg editor. And I've learned a little bit along the way of some of the shortcomings that we'll encounter. And we're gonna, this is an exploratory process, we're gonna come up with, solutions to the issues we've identified, such as block padding that gets added when you change the background color, or image misalignment that might not be relating to Gutenberg. It could stem from our internal CSS. I'll have to double check that one. And so we've been working our way down this theme. So let's go ahead and run the project. This mockup, this Figma mockup. And I'll open the mockup in a new tab, and we'll make sure we're in the right project, Creative Commons base. We're here in Trusty VS Code. Now, Creative Commons base is not currently using WP Env for development. And this Figma is eating up my resources. All right, let's see if we can get my computer to start responding again. Not running that much on it. Figma, stay in touch, sign up. Oh, we have some collapsibles here. All right, so we're changing the directory. So we're using Docker, where we've written our own Docker Compose file. The WP Env also uses Docker and Docker Compose. It just automatically generates the Docker Compose file when you start the environment and looks at some of the underlying dependencies, such as Xdebug, which is installed regardless of if you're debugging PHP. I've opened a pull request to kind of disable Xdebug when it's explicitly disabled. So in other words, when Xdebug is not on in the Docker configuration, in the WP environment, it should not install that dependency, I believe. We'll see if that pull request gets any traction. So we have our own Docker Compose where I could just make a change like that. I do like the WPN project, and it has been pretty flawless aside from that one issue with Xdebug. This is pretty heavy. I'd probably do better to export these as ping or something like that. Yeah, and even our Docker Compose is a little bit heavy. Like we have a composer dependency, which we're not really using. We have, you know, we went ahead and threw in PHP myadmin just in case we want to fiddle with the database, but it's not really super important. So let's run the, and another thing, it runs on on the default port, trusted port. So the WP env has a proper port assignment. So let's see, we're not logged in. I don't remember my test user. Probably just admin and password, which is what the WPM says is the default. All right, so basically we need to add this page, and I should have exported it in our previous session. So I've got this top block. We'll go ahead and skip down a bit because I have gone through these other designs and tested them out. This is creating a brighter future through better, more ethical sharing. Section looks to be going to be a little bit challenging. We've got collapsible, like an accordion, which I don't believe is part of the default Gutenberg blocks. We'll encounter difficulties there. We've got an image. This is interesting. It's got the attribution as an overlay or caption, I suppose, would be overlaying on the image, which may have a positional configuration option. So this might be a custom Gutenberg widget we'll need to develop. This also might be a custom Gutenberg widget based on Bulma, though we don't want to kind of deviate too far. Yeah, and for the most part, once this server is running, I can just kind of ignore VS Code. So we'll just go ahead and move this over to the left. We'll create a new block, and this, essentially when we decompose these design elements, this is a block called columns, which can contain other blocks, and it looks like actually, let me think here. This is a block above the column. So we have a columns with a 50-50 split or 30-70 or something like that. 40-60 here. It's a little bit offset. Cool. And we'll add one above it, which is just, the problem here is that we need a container. This is where you have to start thinking in terms of, let's try it with just a heading. And here we'll immediately want to put this background color as like gold, let's just say. Okay, and full width. So that worked. And then paragraph, just like oh, come on. Cool. Now we want to change the color settings for that. Just using the same. I'm not using brand colors now. In the editor, these look split apart, but let me just fill this out. They'll become merged, and I want this. Aha! So that's changed. The paragraph can't have full width alignment. I just want to make sure I'm not missing that, but usually the block has this alignment. Let's put this over here. Yeah, and to a large extent, we're just going to adapt to the limitations of Gutenberg, I hope. Just play it how it's dealt. But we're also going to look at, there might be some upstream improvements that we could suggest, or like find open issues that other people have already suggested or encountered the same issue. And we might have an opportunity to do some development. We want to limit the amount of custom code needed for this MVP, because that's just going to further delay the project. One, two, three, fourth section. Add separate header and paragraph blocks. This is just for reference. Yeah, and the uppercase text does work. Yeah, this basically means I'll need to wrap these in columns, in a single column container, and move it up. Or I guess, okay, let's try that one more time. No? Weird. If I move into that, did it go? I think so. Where did it go? Yeah, this is it. All right, cool. Remove the background colors from the individual elements. Add the background colors to the block. Select the column block, choosing the color, and full width. Full width. Interesting, it says wide width, but I think it's full width. Oh, wait. There we go. Okay, that's the column. For some reason, the editor's not letting me select full width, but it did work. Okay, and our typography is messed up. So but it works. Essentially, once we got the block selected, color, type, text color. Hopefully this will carry through, I believe. It should, but yeah. Now the padding. Ah, I see. Actually, we want to change the columns block if possible. Full width. There we go. Ah, yeah. F5. Print screen. I'm not going to fight this big battle about the mysterious side effect of adding padding when changing the color. I understand the justification, but I think it's a technical implementation. That it's unintended, unnatural side effect of changing a color is to add padding. Perhaps the padding should be there as the default case, and ideally the padding would be a secondary adjustment. They're separate settings. The idea of having a colored background with text up to the edge, in general, a container with text up to the edge might be not very desirable. Copy clipboard. So here's the correct screenshot type. Yeah, it's just a little bit cleaner. And wait a minute, let me double check here. If I need to specify the text color. Yeah, so print screen that. I mean, to a certain extent, this Gutenberg editor, using it for page layout, will require some technical competency on the editor's part, where they're not just going to have a rich text editor that allows them to copy and paste, straight from word processor necessarily. Particularly when we start adding multimedia and other elements. Now, this page homepage layout is more complicated than most articles, though, so it might not be too much of a learning curve. But yeah, that's looking clean. I'll update that. Now for the second half. So these are essentially rows. Blocks are basically rows, block elements by definition, I think, or by nature. Span across the whole width, or yeah, something like that. Yeah, so I'll add columns. And this is that. Oh, wait. Actually, cancel that. Got the columns here. Oh, didn't want to do that. Now, I like that Control Z works. Undo, redo. Control Z, undo. Control Y, redo. I'm guessing this is weird. What's going on here? So let me make sure I'm at all the way to the columns. Whoa, there's a group block. Oh, I didn't ever notice that. What's a group block do? Might just be better than the usually we get some configuration on the right side to combine blocks into a group. So yeah, better than a columns, which we're not using, would be a group. As drag and drop is, yeah, works. Let's see though, the key here needs to be full width. And man, this is, oh, wide width. So the group needs to be full width. Yes, it allows that. And the color background. Oh man, this is good. We still need this to go down, which is nice. That's easy to do. I'm gonna check the default typography. Okay, and that's one of the gotchas of mixing the it's inconsistent. It shouldn't be mixed in the first place. I'm really of strong opinion that they're different color and margin, padding, color, and the layout are different. Serve different purposes. They're different options, and generally speaking, design programs have separate configurations for them. CSS, the language, has separate variables that are defined for those. This is definitely an upstream issue, although we can solve it downstream with simple classes. The group is what we're looking for here for this element. Full width groups do not have the default padding, which is correct. I think the correct thing to do. Inspect that. Luminous vivid amber. Nice. Let's just say margin or looks good. In order to not distract, let's just set this. So used to combine blocks into a group. Really straightforward. Allows full width to display. Yeah. Cool. Next section. I'll add just a new comment. Fifth section. So on the left, we've got an image. And so that I'm not cheating by just cropping, clipping the caption in there in the image, I'm just going to crop it out. Which is probably a better crop anyway, because there's not as much interesting content up there. This is Creative Commons Global Summit 2019. Ping. So we'll add an image. We will upload CC pictures. So that works. I'll add a caption down here. Sebastian Turber. Interesting. All right, there's the caption. Now the alt text all should be set. And we could have different image styles. Yeah, so let's make note of that. In a minute. And then the other one is, well, yeah, they want that collapsible widget. P-A-C-T-F-U-L-I-M-P-A-C-T-F-U-L. Ah, poor dog. Yeah. Okay, so obvious shortcomings, not collapsible. Well, yeah, then we'd have this image overlay. But let's go up one level here to the group, but it's actually the columns. So full width and background color. So text color, background color, and that's a problem already. Well, let's see what it looks like. Oh, here we go. Ah, it's displaying. A gap. A gap. Oh, I was mistaken about the gap. What do we have? Yeah, so yeah, the padding, or margin in this case, margin. Just leave that selected, please. P. Oh, it's just regular paragraph padding. New challenge. Interesting. Spills out. Quirkiness. Idiosyncrasies. Border box looks correct. So I was thinking, so it's this one. Is there a specific? There's gotta be a simple solution here. I just don't know. Which is not that, because that also affects these other paragraphs. Yeah, that makes it the margin. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, margin. Yeah. Okay. All right. That's correct. Damn it. Let's try it again. Yeah. Sure, that was correct. So. Jumping around. Magic wand won't work. That's cool. Try to do this without it being disorienting. what was this called? Group. That doesn't work. Video. Basically, we're just an overflow. And what's the parent? Overflow hidden. Excellent. Good progress. Let me check. Stream. All quiet. We're going to wrap up here pretty shortly. I'm just going to publish the final notes and summarize what we've explored today. Other than that, so things are looking good. Inside of it, so it's inconsistent because we're using a group block. Or should be using columns here. That's the thing. If I change to columns color, black and gold, refresh it. That's to see. All right, cool. Good notes. All right. So quite a lot just from exploring this homepage. It's one of the more complicated layouts. It's got a lot of elements. So one of the more prominent pages. I think I'm hoping the other pages don't have quite as much complexity and are basically echoes. The learnings would be echoes of this homepage. All right, let's go ahead and summarize. This is a recap of today's Creative Commons open source office hours, hosted on codebuddies.org. Today we've been working on the creativecommons.org website redesign. It's a work in progress project, and we're continuing down our Figma mockup to create one of the homepage sections and kind of breaking that into Gutenberg blocks to see how closely we can approximate this mockup. We've gone through quite a few sections of the homepage and have found some various trade-offs, shortcomings, both in and good qualities in Gutenberg and our own CSS style. So this is an exploratory task, and we're just going to use the gleanings here to decide how to proceed with development so that we can launch this redesign in a timely manner. So here's the reference, and what I've done is broken the reference into what I believe are the closest fit Gutenberg blocks, and also learned about a new group block today. I previously had been using columns, even when there was a single column, but it turned out the columns were inside of a group, and I looked at that directly. So the first attempt here was just to treat these both as individual, not even put them in a container, just change the background of the header and paragraph. The header supports full width layout. The paragraph does not allow full width layout, so that was just not going to work out. Unfortunately, we have to add a containing element here, but I believe that would have been the most ideal solution, provided this gap wouldn't be displayed on the front end. But I believe it typically is only visible in the editor, but as we'll see in a moment, that's not the case. There's some definite inconsistency across Gutenberg blocks and between the Gutenberg editor and the WordPress front end. I know it's a monumental project, and there's like a lot of trade-offs and a lot of developers, so inconsistency is natural. But I hope there's designers and some style guide thinking holistically. I'm sure there is. I just have not been deeply involved in the process. So I went to the go-to columns container where I've used before, knowing that you can have a full width columns even in the case of a single column. And the caveat here is I think our styles are defining a lighter shade of text, a couple of shades of gray text here. And what we want to do is have a darker shade or more contrast on the text, so we want to have black on yellow. So I believe that can be done, definitely can be done through the editor, through the Gutenberg editor, by changing the font color. We can also do it globally, depending on how we want the default text color to render. I do think it is nice to have gray text on a white background, but it seems like a lot of our font colors, except in the menu, are pretty close to black. So the next approach, I realized, well, let's just try out the group block. So group block does allow full width display, and I could easily just move these heading and paragraph into the group block. But when it rendered, we had some issues that there was an inconsistency between the editing interface, where the full width adding a color background adds a padding to the element. And this has been justified as I opened an issue in the WordPress core. I'm not quite sure where the I think it's a bigger issue just than WordPress, but essentially, you know, it just doesn't look good to have text up against the edge of a container in general, particularly when you're adding a color. So I think that's the justification for adding a margin, I believe, or is it padding? Margin padding. In our case, in any case, when changing the color, I believe the padding should be there always, despite a separate, like decoupled from changing the color. And furthermore, I think it's on the roadmap to allow the content editor to set the margin and padding from the Gutenberg editor. So that'll be the ideal solution. In case it's a small CSS fix that we can handle downstream, not too worried about it. The fifth section here, it's actually part of this, it's like a two-part. It's a little more complicated, and out of the gate, I know that we don't have, at least I'm pretty sure Gutenberg doesn't provide an accordion, like collapsible thing that would need JavaScript on the front end. But it does have, you know, image element, heading, and paragraph. So the first thing I noticed though is the group element, and this might also be the case with columns, but it's allowing this paragraph margin to overflow, and so it created that gap that I was concerned with earlier between these elements, because we don't, this is gapless, and even though I'm using two Gutenberg blocks, it should be kind of feel like one section of the front page. But it looks like, you know, there's a simple way of fixing that. Stack Overflow, of course. The box sizing is correct. We want border box so that it contains the child elements, but this, we need to hide the overflow in this case. And I hope we can just apply that to the WP block group selector, and that won't have any adverse effects. It's a small fix, one line of code. Other than that, the columns block is our pal here. We've got an image with a caption on the left. The difference is the default WordPress image styles place the caption below the image. We might decide if we need a custom image style for the MVP, or if we can punt that to another time. We don't have to 100% follow the Figma mockups. They're getting us down the line. Using headings and paragraphs, was able to pretty much replicate the at least look and feel, but not the functionality. So we would have to determine if we need the collapsible sections for the minimum viable product. I think this is pretty well contained. They're not taking up a lot of vertical space. My recommendation would be to just use headings and paragraphs. Keep it simple, keep things simple, so we can move the project forward and get the MVP out the door. All right, well, this has been a Code Buddies live code hangout. If you'd like to join this or other hangouts, stop by codebuddies.org. And as part of the Creative Commons open source initiative, we've got a lot of projects at Creative Commons that are open source, not just WordPress. We've got Python and Django projects as well, if you'd like to get involved. And Vue.js, I should mention, we've got a CC license chooser that's made with Vue. If you'd like to get involved with these projects, stop by opensource.creativecommons.org. Thank you very much for your time, and have a great day.